Despite the dark, twisted story that unfolds in The Witcher 3's first expansion, Hearts of Stone, which is full of betrayal, brutal revenge, and spins, the central quest starts out pretty unassuming. Geralt looking over a board for work. Nothing but a standard monster contract at the fairly unremarkable Nine Cats Inn. A beast prowls the sewers of Oxenfurt. Simple Witcher work with not a hint of the terrible things to follow. But it's not an unimportant start, because Hearts of Stone is all about contracts. As a Witcher, Geralt is a warrior bound by his word, pledging his service to make ends meet. Yet his work often brings him into conflict between his obligations and his ethical code. Throughout the game, Geralt has been given the option to spare monsters, turn against the person who hired them, and basically highlight that his ethical code stands above his sense of obligation or duty, which makes him the perfect foil for a story all about unbreakable contracts and people who try to cheat their dues. Not that Geralt has any hint of the shitstorm to come at the outset, though a visit to the person who posted the contract, Olgierd von Everec and his band of eccentric warriors, hints that there's more than meets the eye. They're mischievous and cruel, and even though Olgierd puts on a more civil and sophisticated face for Geralt,
Hey! Leave her be! Is that any way to treat the lord of the manor's daughter? Apologies. Now, where were we?
we're all defined by the company we keep. The job seems, at least, to be simple. Go kill a big toad in the sewer of Oxenfurt. Olgierd offers up an explanation about his favourite cook being eaten by the beast as his reason for posting the contract, and pointedly, the loss of a good meal seems to bother him more than the loss of life, but it's enough to assuage Geralt. At the university town of Oxenfurt, Geralt goes into the sewers where he quickly meets Shani, a small character from the books and the first Witcher game, who gets a welcome do-over from that appearance as a capable, brave medic. She lays out the damages wrought by the monster, explaining that not only is it hurting those who venture into the sewers, but it's contaminated the water supply, for which she now seeks a cure. Again, more classic Witcher stuff, grounding its fantastical creatures in a larger reality. There's a little scene while Geralt waits for the beast to take his bait, when he meditates, where his theme is reprised, and aside from being a nice little moment, it's the first of many reminders intended to make clear who Geralt is. While his surroundings are grimy and disgusting, and his work equally so, the music is heroic. The lad is knee-deep in sewer water, because a monster needs killing. People are being hurt. As far as the world above this sewer is concerned, for the few that even know what he does, Geralt is simply doing his job. It's a seemingly insignificant moment, but it's a highlight for me because it asserts the quiet heroism at the heart of the Witcher stories. That heroes aren't found in kings and princes, those with power, but instead, you find heroes in those who help maintain infrastructures that benefit everyone, whether that's sanitation or healthcare. And it's important for Hearts of Stone because virtue and selflessness are all that stand in opposition to the evil that manifests throughout this quest. And here's where things take a turn for the worse for dear old Geralt. After a battle with a monster, in which he slices its guts open, Geralt ends up poisoned, and can only watch as it's revealed the toad was a human, cursed and transformed. Naturally, Geralt is framed and held responsible by the prince's people, who are bound by their own oaths and pacts. They've also held their guide responsible too, and intend to have him executed for not getting them to their prince in time. Which is a pretty great example of why you probably shouldn't honour every oath and promise you make, but their society holds them accountable for their ability to uphold their honour, much like Geralt often has to appease those around him or face retribution. But obviously he's not doomed, with salvation coming in the form of Gaunter O'Deem, who reintroduces himself for the first time since the game's opening, even testing if players actually remember him.
Greetings, Geralt. Remember me?
I remember. We met in White Orchard. You're
Gaunter O'Deem, known also as Master Mirror.
He's an unremarkable man, but the sense there's more to him than meets the eye was unshakable even before he mysteriously appeared on this ship at sea and vanishes just as quick. He offers Geralt a deal, a rescue in exchange for help with a problem of his own. With little other choice, Geralt agrees and gets a brand for the pleasure, ensuring we clearly understand that O'Deem is not a mere mortal man making a simple exchange of services. And in a fashion that will become commonplace going forward, Odim's help comes in the questionable form of a storm running the ship aground. One very stylish and quite brutal escape later, Geralt meets with Odim at the designated rendezvous.
I knew you'd come.
It's an almost laughably ominous meeting that's only offset by Odim's friendly and casual manner. He holds some cards close to his chest, but is, overall, pretty frank with Geralt. Carry out Olgir's wishes and wipe away the debt. I mean, get rid of the brand. We'll talk more about Odim later, so let's get back to the questline's other major character. Heading back to the manor where he first met Olgerd, Geralt finds it ablaze, and Olgir's warriors not the slightest bit bothered by the burning building. Geralt is distracted from scrutinising this further as his Witcher senses tingle at something immoral, an impromptu beheading that the player can have him get involved in.
What's he guilty of?
What the fuck's it to you? Not your concern, mate.
I'll leave soon as you tell me.
Aren't you a thorny prick up the arse? Ataman said to kill him!
Got your answer. Happy? Now piss off.
It's not clear what this person did, though notably it is the same man who harassed the Lord's daughter earlier. But given the devil-may-care attitude of the soldiers, it's not hard to doubt there being a justifiable reason. After all, they've burnt down the woman's home. Why are his actions deemed worse? Olgerd finally emerges, and takes offence to Geralt's interferences, leading to a classic Geralt one-liner.
Geralt, have you decided to play defender of the downtrodden?
More like gutter of sons of bitches.
The anger in this line is substantial. Geralt doesn't just feel inclined to do the right thing, he hates those who abuse power, despises those who hurt others thoughtlessly. It's what makes him the perfect hero for this story. The only reason he's involved at all is because he was tricked into a life or death situation. But he respects the pact made, understands its seriousness, and never attempts to trick Gondor or Odim, nor is the option given to players. Olgerd does no respect his dead. So, should players intervene in the matter, they must duel Olgerd for the man's life, and upon their gruesome victory, make a horrific discovery. Olgerd is immortal. Now, the true nature of his deal with Gondor Odim begins to present itself. And of course, if you speak of the devil...
I sliced its gut open, and it turned into a man. You know that would happen?
Of course he did. He'd never have dragged you into this elsewise.
Gondor Odim. Come to cast aspersions?
No. I've come to collect a debt.
You know you first must...
Grant you 3 requests, by proxy. I present to you my champion, Geralt of Rivia.
Olgerd, as part of his pact with Gondor Odim, presumably attempting to outwit him, had a clause included which means that if Odim wants to collect what is owed and conclude their deal, he must first find an intermediary to grant Olgerd 3 wishes. The implication, it would seem, is Gondor Odim has been biding his time waiting for the perfect person to act on his behalf, one who has a chance of fulfilling these wishes. And in the highly capable Witcher, he's at last found the person for the job. That Geralt's involvement only occurs due to Olgerd's own spitefulness and thoughtlessness makes it all the more fitting. Whether Geralt turns out to be the right person for Odim remains in the player's hands. Hearts of Stone is essentially about a Faustian bargain, or a deal with the devil. The term comes from German folklore, inspired by the real Johann Faust, a Renaissance alchemist and magician. Someone gives something of spiritual or personal value, say their soul, in exchange for something which is material, like money or power. Traditionally, these stories are tragic, with the person who makes the deal often learning the thing they gave up was far more valuable than what they got in return. An important part of the story is that they are not outright tricked. They're never lied to about the terms of the deal. Instead, their own ignorance is used against them, sometimes with clauses and wordplay that undermines the agreement as understood by the deal maker. More on that later. Geralt enters into this archetypal tale not as the deal maker, even if he has a contract of his own, but as a mediator. Olgerd is already shown to be someone who cares little for the lives of others. Gondor Odim hasn't done anything wrong or cruel as of yet, but their sinister aura is unmistakable. Their power great, and it's clear they're far more than meets the eye. So it's not as simple as choosing sides. This is, in a way, Geralt's bread and butter. Every monster contract he undertakes comes with complications and ethical dilemmas. Who's the victim? Who deserves justice or reparations? I think this is why Hearts of Stone feels both like a natural fit for The Witcher, and why many regard it as the game's best quest. It's the ultimate version of the archetypal Witcher quest, but with its nature made explicit. stripped down so it can pretty much look right in the camera and ask the audience directly the questions that are essential to so much of The Witcher. What is evil? What do we humans owe each other? And what's left when the bonds that connect us are broken? Within Olgier's 3 requests are 3 short stories, each a tragedy in its own right. For his first wish, Olgierd wants Geralt to bring him the House of Borsodi. And so Geralt embarks on a heist not entirely knowing what he's trying to steal. Under Odim's guidance, he learns of a horsed Borsodi and his auction house in Oxenfurt. Geralt only gets in thanks to his friend Vimy Vivaldi, who's just fucking great. He's the highlight of this wee quest. Honestly, who wouldn't want a rich mate ready to help them out whenever? And hot tip, he also lets you borrow money if players meet him in Novergad. That is never expected to be paid back.
Business with you's a pure pleasure, Vimy.
The dear departed wifey claimed the same.
Here, brushing shoulders with Oxenfurt's elite, The Witcher pokes fun at the snobbery and pretense, but the reality that these people are exploiting the war and other events to increase their wealth underlines it all. Here in Redania, we're far from the war-stricken no man's land to the south. Things are prosperous here, further outlining how removed from the world these people are. Given the state of the real world, that stings more and more on replays. Which is to say, Horst himself is a fucking loathsome bastard, but one who makes immediate sense.
I'm not like Vivaldi. Profit alone only goes so far for me. I seek more. The auction house is primarily a meeting place for the local elite. I needn't tell you, an itinerant mutant doesn't quite fit in.
And Geralt can't make headway with the man on account of being deemed an inferior class. It's the mention of the House of Borsodi that gets Geralt kicked out, but even without that, a working man isn't welcome among Redania's nobility. And neither is a certain suspicious gruff man dressed in black hanging outside the auction house. The stranger invites Geralt to take part in a heist he's been planning. A heist to break into the auction house's vault, where the House of Borsodi is kept. Here, gathering accomplices, more pacts and oaths are made.
One last thing. Inform the City Watch, blabber anything about this over an ale, and I'll kill you with my own hands.
But as we soon learn, there's no honour among thieves. Geralt agreed to the heist on the condition that nobody was killed, something the stranger ignores almost immediately upon finding guards stationed inside the auction house. Things only unravel further. Hostages are taken, accomplices abandon the job, and then we get our big revelation. The man who planned the heist is Horst's estranged brother, Geralt, who wants the House of Borsodi for themselves, as it contains the deeds to the Borsodi family empire, which Horst tricked him out of years prior.
Family reunion. What's the point?
Revenge. For betrayal. Years of poverty. Humiliation. Father left the auction house to me in his will. Horst cheated me. Had me disinherited.
Anything. Everything we earned, you squandered on cards and whores. Father didn't see that. I did.
That's no excuse, Horst. And it won't save your life.
You two, stand with me. I'll not let the Redanians lay a hand on you. Give you whatever you want.
No matter what you do, it doesn't end well for at least one of the brothers.
Dine over to me, all that you own. Then walk out as you stand with just the clothing on your back.
Allow me one thing. Any one thing.
15 years. In the sewers. Begging. Like a beast. And you've the cheek to plead. Take that.
That a simple piece of paper can determine the fortunes of people highlights the absurdity of such contracts, as well as the ruthless actions carried out around it. When people are desperate, they can make all sorts of deals and debts to escape their circumstances. But what does it say of those who take advantage of that desperation? The interesting thing about the Borsodi situation is that Neither of these men are moral. One is a selfish hoarder of wealth, and the other is a ruthless killer who will do anything for that same wealth. Geralt is a victim of sorts, but he uses that as an excuse to justify his own cruelty. Something we soon learn he has in common with a certain Olgierd. It's not unsympathetic to wish to escape poverty, but treating others as disposable so you can join the ranks of the wealthy and elite, or restore you to that status. Well, you've joined their ranks in more ways than just the material. Contracts of this nature are rigged. The upper classes decide who gets their help, who gets to join them. You can't beat the system by using its rules. Olgierd might fancy himself as nothing like the nobles that mocked him and took everything he had, but his own disregard for others makes his differences little more than superficial, as long as self-interest is the motivator. Ultimately, the house always wins.